What's up, friend, and welcome to another video here on the channel. Today we're going to have a look at the top 15 cards from Secrets of Strixhaven for Standard Constructed, and we're also going to have a look at the 5 cards that I consider to be the biggest sleeper cards from the set. Now, I will say it was quite tricky because I think Secrets of Strixhaven is incredibly powerful and will fit into Standard really nicely. So if I missed out on any of the cards, let me know in the comments, and in general, let me know what you think about my picks. With that being said, let's dive into it and let's have a look at card number 1. I will say these are not in any particular order, just the 15 cards that I think are the best for Standard. Let's get started. First up, we have Erode, a 1-mana white instant where you destroy a target creature or planeswalker, and its controller may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. I'm pretty sure this card being on here comes as no surprise to you guys. I mean, this is premium removal. It's going to be a Standard staple going forward. I think it is so much better than Get Lost as well, because I think the 2 map tokens are much more of a downside for you than your opponent finding a basic land card. I mean, sometimes those map tokens really make a creature a lot scarier, or unlocks your opponent's top of the deck, or even puts lands into their hand. And I think just giving your opponent a basic land card for 1 white is just so worth it. Yeah, I think this is going to replace Get Lost in most decks, even though losing the capabilities to remove an enchantment is a bit unfortunate. However, the fact that this still hits planeswalkers is awesome. 1 mana is, of course, an incredible rate, and I think we're going to see a lot of Erode in the format. So while we're on the topic of premium interaction, Vibrant Outburst, of course, has to be part of that. It's an Izzet spell, 2-mana instant. It deals 3 damage to any target, and you tap up to 1 target creature. Now, I'm quite upset seeing this card printed because I think it's so unbelievably strong, and Izzet definitely does not need additional support in Standard. Of course, red and blue together are the most powerful color combination in the format, and this is just premium removal. I mean, in Standard, we're still playing with Lightning Strike, and this is literally a better Lightning Strike. And this is also a card that's going to fit into a wide variety of decks. So Izzet Prowess could use it to deal 3 damage into the face and tap a blocker, but also maybe a Jeskai control could use this instead of a Lightning Helix to be able to remove an attacker and then remove another attacker by tapping something down, and that buys them a good amount of time. So the flexibility of this and the fact that it's also just very good and within the best colors in the format, this is going to see a lot of play. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about it. It's not a fun one. And one of the most important things as well is how good this card is against green landfall or any deck using Badgermole Cub and stuff. Because if you put an upkeep stop and then you tap down whatever Earth Bandit land they have, and also remove a Mana Dork or a Badgermole, that is a massive tempo play. And yeah, I think Vibrant Outburst could be responsible for making the mono green decks, the mono green landfall, or the Badger decks go down in the tier rating, because I think it's simply that good against it and in the best colors. Yeah, we're going to be seeing this a lot, and it's going to be very frustrating to play against. Next up, we have another incredible card for the Izzet decks in the format. This is Flashback, a 1-mana red instant, where target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains Flashback until the end of turn, and the Flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. There are so many of these super powerful Izzet decks that use a lot of instants and sorceries. This is such an efficient way for you to get prowess triggers or buy back some of your best spells. We were talking about buying back stock ups or buying back accumulate wisdoms. Maybe this gets you back a boomerang basic super cheaply. And as you do that, it's also just a prowess trigger for 1 mana. I also think it's insane that this is at instant speed. That is kind of a game changer as well. So yeah, this is going to be a very scary one. Once again, it's going to push the Izzet decks even further over the top than they already are. Slots into prowess, slots into spell elementals, I think. Yeah, it's a very broken card, and once again, I'm not really looking forward to Izzet being boosted, but it is exactly going to do that. But I also think it could be played in other decks, anything that has valuable instants or sorceries that they want to have more of. Flashback could see play in that as well. Perhaps even control players might want this, or if you have a deck that is built around a very specific instant sorcery, to be able to buy it back again so cheaply, it's just awesome. We're gonna see a lot of Flashback in the format, I think. Alright, I promise you the set review isn't all about Izzet cards. However, we have to mention Flow State because this card is ridiculous. In the right deck list, this is a better expressive iteration, which is insane to say because expressive iteration is a card that is banned in multiple formats. However, Flow State is a 2-mana sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library and put one of them into your hand and the rest at the bottom of your library in any order. There's an instant card and a sorcery card in your graveyard. Instead, put 2 of them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So this card already slots really nicely into the Izzet decks in Standard. So we're talking about prowess, we're talking about spell elementals. I even wonder if Lessons would want this. They probably do. And any deck that uses stock up probably wants to replace it with this. Maybe not control, but it is just so efficient. And, you know, these Izzet decks, they don't really have to change their deck around anyways, because there is already a very healthy mixture of instants and sorceries within those decks. Think about like Sleight of Hand and Boomerang Basics being like staple sorcery cards within those decks. And of course, like Lessons has other like sorcery speed spells. This is just so easily played, and it's not even that bad if you don't have the requirement. Like if it's like, you know, look at 3, grab 1, that's not too awful. However, it's very easily done to look at 3 cards, grab 2 for 2. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah, it's getting a bit upsetting about how much support Blue is getting when it already is the best color in Standard. Like, we really don't need these cards. But yeah, maybe it's going to be good enough to finally push it into like a ban-worthy range. I have no idea, but Flow State is another ridiculously powerful card, and more crazy card draw in blue, I fear. All right, here we have another blue card, but this time around, not really a card that I think fits into Izzet decks, but just in general, such awesome design and such great value on a creature. This is a 3-mana 2/3 Skycoach Conductor, flying and vigilance, and it enters prepared. You then get All Aboard, which is a prepared spell for 1 blue, instant speed, exile target non-pilot creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Now, what I absolutely love about this card is that the blink effect is a separate spell. So you could literally just like flash this in and not immediately have to use the blink. You could save that for a later action. So think about attacking during combat. If something gets blocked like negatively, you could just like blink the creature that's getting blocked. You could use this on like a Quantum Riddler in the future with its like warp cost, fire off All Aboard, get it like onto the battlefield. I think it's just really flexible. I also like the fact that it is a flyer, so you could do something like Momo on 1, Skycoach Conductor on 2, and then hold that All Aboard for interaction, or like I said, getting like any of the warp creatures value out of that. It's just incredibly flexible. Obviously, All Aboard also saves your stuff. I think it's just an awesome creature. I think it's going to see play in a wide variety of decks. I see this at least in like Blue-White Momo and like Blue-White Tempo / Flash, however you want to call that deck. This is just such an incredibly well-designed creature, and like I said, the upside of All Aboard being a separate spell is just huge, because sometimes if you have these like blink effects stuck in your hand, you have a creature that's just sitting there and you're waiting for the right time. This dude, you can just like play proactively, and I think that is just a massive game changer. So really, really hyped for this card. I think it's fantastic, like 10 out of 10 design. Next up is my favorite creature from the set, Hardened Academic. For red and white, you get a 2/1 with flying and haste. You have an activated ability, discard a card, it gains lifelink until the end of turn. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. I think this card slots into so many like different decks. I love it in like discard decks. I think about like Rakdos discard. Of course, you have to splash like white in there, make it Mardu discard. I already have a video on the deck list on the channel. You could do this in like Jeskai Oculus, like any other deck that cares about like discarding. Especially if you can also take advantage of cards leaving your graveyard and then putting 1/1 counters to things. I think that is also awesome. You can do that through like reanimation, but also maybe if you use like a Soul Cauldron or something, which allows you to put more 1/1 counters everywhere. The discard with Soul Cauldron is also awesome. I think there's just so much potential with this card. I just love the fact that it has haste as well, which is just awesome in combination with Cool But Rude. I think the lifelink is also just a game changer on this. Like, I feel like a lifelink is kind of unnecessary, but it's awesome that it has it. I just love everything about this card. It is just packed with value, and I think Hardened Academic is going to see a really good amount of standard play. Cannot wait to be brewing more decks around this guy. Like, I love everything about it. Super powerful, perfect standard card. Next up, I have Resonating Lute, a 4-mana artifact. Lands you control have tap, add 2 mana of any one color, spend this mana only to cast instant and sorcery spells. You can tap it to draw a card, activate only if you have 7 more cards in your hand. This is just such a major card for the control players in Standard. If you're playing like Jeskai control, 4-color control, 5-color control, whatever, Resonating Lute is awesome. Even if you maybe play like Ramp or something and your top end card is an instant or sorcery, this is such a game changer, because I feel like control is in an okay position in Standard. The one thing that is a bit of a downside is that, you know, they're all relying on Jeskai Revelation to close out games, and sometimes that is just a little bit too expensive, a little bit too clunky, and Resonating Lute just completely solves that problem because you ramp into it so fast. Like, it's literally the next card that you can cast after you play this on turn 4. You could also play it on turn 5, then hold up like a valuable 2-mana spell like Removal or Counter Magic or anything of the sort. This is a big, big card for the control decks in Standard, and especially combos off with our next card. So this is another like fantastic payoff card for the Resonating Lute within control decks. So they always have like Jeskai Revelation at the top end. This card is going to be added on top of that as well. I was kind of sleeping on this card because I misread it. It's a 7 mana sorcery improvisation capstone, and you can exile cards on the top of your library until you exile cards with total mana value 4 or greater. You may cast any number of spells from among them without paying their mana cost, and you have Paradigm. So Paradigm means that you exile a spell, and if you first resolve a spell with its name, you may cast a copy of it from exile without paying its mana cost at the beginning of each of your first main phase. So if you can get this fired off on turn 5, then you play Lute on 4, the game is yours. And like I said, the crazy thing about this is that it says you exile cards with total mana value 4 or greater and cast any number of spells from among them. So what you could do is like you could hit like a Lightning Helix, and then it's going to get another spell for you, and that could be a Jeskai Revelation, and you could fire off both of those spells, which is unreal. I cannot believe that it's worded that way, but when I first saw this during early access, I was like, there's no way. How are they firing off all these spells? Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, this is such an insane, like, top-end card, top-end, like, win con for control decks. And with the Lute, it makes it so much more reasonable to play this. Like, if you fire this off on turn 7, you know, the game is most of the time close to being over, and you're not going to get a lot of Paradigm value. But if you fire this off on turn 5, that is huge. So, yeah, a new win con for control decks. Obviously, there is a little bit of an element of RNG to it. But most of the time, you know, total mana value 4 or greater does mean that you're going to get like at least 2 spells out of this. So happy for the control gamers out there. They got some new toys to play with. And I do think that control is definitely getting a boost from these 2 previous cards. And I think Improvisation Capstone is also just a really fun build around anyways. I think it's going to be competitive within control decks, but you could definitely do some like fun stuff with this as well within standard. Next up, a green card, Planar Engineering. This is a 4 mana sorcery where you can sacrifice 2 lands and then search your library for 4 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tab, then shuffle. So I wasn't sure if I would consider this a trap card. Like, part of me thinks this is a trap, part of me thinks this could be broken. Like, I'm really just torn. Obviously, this slots perfectly into the mono green landfall deck list, which is one of the strongest decks in standard right now. Has crazy synergy with cards like Chocobo, Mossborn Hydra, Tifa, Harmonizer. Question is whether or not they need this. That's kind of where I'm like, is this a trap? Like, is Icesteel Explorer not always better in the 4-drop slot? But then again, if you can sacrifice Earth-Pendant lands and then find 4 basic land cards, that is so many landfall triggers. I feel like they have to be playing this, surely. Like, I can imagine the green decks maybe doing like 4 Icesteel Explorers and like 2 copies of Planar Engineering in there. Perhaps this card is going to make the more aggressive version of Green Landfall make a comeback again. So think about Tifa instead of going more in like a mid-rangey route that they are doing right now. I want to say surely like it's good enough. Like 4 landfall triggers and maybe even more than that if you sacrifice the Earth-Bendant lands. It's got to get out of hand, surely. So I want to give it the benefit of the doubt and put it in my top list. But it could be that, you know, the green players think this is unnecessary. But yeah, crazy for landfall triggers, that's for sure. All right, this one is for my fellow demon enjoyers. Tragedy Feaster, 4 mana, 7/6 demon with trample and ward, discard a card, but it has effusions at the beginning of your end step. Sacrifice a permanent unless you gain life this turn. If you play Unholy Annex, you're going to have to like auto-include this card because it has fantastic synergy with the Annex. Like, this card does see the life gain from Annex happening, meaning you don't have to sacrifice something. Of course, a 7/6 demon with trample is awesome. Really great combination with like Bloodletter of Aclazotz. The ward discard a card is also really sweet. I mean, in general, I'm a huge fan of cards with ward discard a card. I think that is just so much value. Like, your opponent isn't really going to be wanting to remove this guy, but also it's a 7/6 with trample, so they kind of have no choice. It's just really sweet in these like black decks, especially if you care about like having demons too. I think it's a premium creature, and it's really great because I love Unholy Annex. So Unholy Annex still is also very playable in standard. This slots into those decks immediately. Another black card, Withering Curse. This is a 3 mana sorcery. All creatures get -2/-2 until the end of turn, and you have infusion. If you gain life this turn, destroy all creatures instead. I think this card is on my list because it is so well positioned in the current meta. We have all of these like otters, these like small creatures from prowess. You have like the earthbending and like all the mana dorks. This is just going to do such a great job cleaning that up. Like, you can see the impact of something like this with like pyroclasms or fire magics. Like, these like cheap board wipes are very appreciated in the format. Great sideboard cards, which this is probably going to be a sideboard card. Unless you're building like a control deck that's also capable of gaining life. Like, I remember there being like Dimir demon control decks out there. Perhaps there's room for like a Golgari life gain control deck in the format. Withering Curse is going to be so good in those. In general, I think already like the flat rate value of -2/-2 for 3 is good. But like I said, if you have the potential and if you care about removing all creatures for 3 mana, that is also just unbelievably sweet. I'm thinking like I want to play a Infusion control deck with maybe like Ancient Cornucopia. It goes so unbelievably hard with these cards. But yeah, Withering Curse just feels like a perfect sideboard card for the current standard format. So I think it's definitely going to see some play for sure. Now it's time for my favorite card from the entire set. Rel Zarek, Guest Lecturer, 3 mana Planeswalker, 3 loyalty. For +1, you get the Seville 2. The -1, any number of target players each discard a card. And a -2, return target creature card, mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And there's even an ultimate on this guy. For -7, you get to flip 5 coins and target opponent skips their next X turns for X's number of coins that came up heads. Now, I don't think that ultimate is ever going to happen, even though I will try my very best to get there. I just think that Rel has such great value. I think the surveilling for +1 is nice. I think the discarding is really sweet because obviously when you're building a deck with Rel, ideally you have like value from discarding. Like I'm thinking about this card with the Oculus, Moon Shadow, like maybe even any other like way of discarding, like the Rakdos discard decks. And then of course, you know, we want to discard, our opponent suffers under that, and Rel just gets really good value, even though I kind of do wish that was an uptick, but it's fine. And then the -2, return target creature card, mana value 3 or less. I mean, I love everything about that. I think that is just fantastic value. This card buying back an Oculus would be so sweet. Or any of the other like reanimation cards. Think about like Fear of Missing Out, or like there's so many just great cards that Rel can hit. I think there's just so much potential within this card, and a 3 mana Planeswalker is just so much value. The fact that the card like protects itself by reanimation because the creature doesn't come back tapped really helps. Fixes the top of your library, you know, hopefully makes your opponent suffer a bit through the discarding, and it's a way for you to like get things into your graveyard. The value on this guy is just fantastic, and I think we're going to see a good amount of Rel brews. I'm excited to play Rel in a wide variety of decks, and it is my favorite card from Strixhaven because this card has me written all over it. So I love it. I think Rel's awesome. You know, 10 out of 10 card. All right, next up, I have to, of course, put the other Planeswalker in here too. Professor Dellian Fel, 4 mana, 5 loyalty. For +2, you gain 3 life. The 0 effect, you draw a card, you lose 1 life. The -3, destroy target creature. And there's also an ultimate, which is pretty easily reached. You get an emblem with whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Now, initially, I wasn't super high on this card because I thought more often than not, it was just going to be like a 4 mana murder because you do -3 and then the creature is pretty easily removed. However, after playing with it during early access, and you know, as long as you build your deck right, where you have some like blockers, this card can just generate a ton of value. Like if this card doesn't get, you know, pressured, you're just gonna like be able to run away with it. I like the fact that the ultimate is pretty easily done. As long as you can get value out of that, I still find it kind of weird that Golgari is the life gain colors, because most of the time, like if life gain is relevant to me, I'm most of the time like in Orzhov colors. But I do think that, you know, with cards like Unholy Annex or other cards that can gain you some life, you can really also take advantage of the ultimate, which is super easily done. I do think that puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. So I want to say, yeah, I think I was kind of wrong about this card. Initially, I do think it's going to be a very like nice mid-range like staple in the format. Maybe you could make that Golgari control deck, and this card could also be a part of this, of course. But yeah, like I'm hoping that Golgari midrange or like Golgari Demons or however you want to build that can find its way into like a tier 2 position, maybe higher than that in standard. And Professor Dellian is just going to be part of that. So yeah, I do think it's one of the better cards. Top 15 from Secrets of Strixhaven. That's why it's in this video. So I like it. I like it. I do. I changed my mind. Next up, we have one of the charms. This is the Prismari Charm, of course. The Izzet Charm. For a blue and a red, you get an instant speed, choose one, surveil 2, then draw a card. Deals 1 damage to each of 1 or 2 targets. Or you return target non-impermanent to its owner's hand. I just have this card in the top 15 because, once again, I think Izzet is just, you know, is the best color combination in the format. And all of the 3 options are just good on this card. Like, I think with the other charms, 2 out of the 3 options are really good, and then one of them is kind of like, eh. This one, you can really get value out of all 3 options. Surveiling 2 and drawing a card. Clean, you know, deals 1 damage to each of 1 or 2 targets. That hits a good amount of things within standard. And then also, you know, returning a non-permanent to its owner's hand, which can also be on your side. Like, this could bounce like a Boomerang Basics for you. It does it at instant speed. I mean, I think it's just going to generate a lot of value, slots perfectly into, you know, the best decks in the format. And I do think it is the best charm out of like all the charms that are in Secrets of Strixhaven, just because of how well A, Izzet is positioned, and B, of course, what it does. I mean, yeah, sadly, another Izzet card, y'all. But like I said, maybe because Strixhaven is boosting up Izzet so much, maybe we can finally see some bans happen, because I'm tired of all the amounts of Izzet. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not saying it should happen, but I would like to see a little bit less Izzet. But yeah, sadly, they're also picking up the best charm, in my opinion, so it is what it is. This just does so many good things, like, it's hard to imagine it not seeing any standard play. And of course, last but not least, we're talking about the slow lands. This is the Shattered Sanctum, which is the Orzhov one. You also have the Izzet one, the Golgari one, the Boros one, and the Simic one. Last time the slow lands were in standard, they just all play. Like, they're just very solid. Land enters tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Yeah, just really clean. It's insane how much premium mana there is available within standard, especially if you are in the colors of the colleges, the Strixhaven schools, whatever we call them. Solid lands, nice reprint. You know, it's never a bad thing to craft the lands, of course. Like, having premium mana is always going to feel great. And yeah, if you're within these colors, it's awesome. It also helps with like decks that are splashing like more than 2 colors. Like if you're playing a 3-color deck, they're also really nice. Big fan of the slow lands, always have been. Good to see them reprinted within Strixhaven. So now we're going to get into the 5 cards that I consider to be the biggest sleeper cards from Secrets of Strixhaven. Sleeper cards basically meaning that people are like, you know, looking over them or like not considering these cards whenever they're talking about the best cards from the set. I think these cards should be highlighted because I think they're going to be better than you expect them to be. So here are the 5 sleeper cards from Secrets of Strixhaven. The first sleeper card is Black Loafing Pest, 3 mana, 3/4 in Golgari colors. Whenever you gain in life, put a 1/1 counter on each pest, bat, insect, snake, and spider you control. Now, within the right deck, this is a remove on sight. Else it's going to be adding like 3 or 4 1/1 counters to your entire board. I played black in a Abzan life gain deck list with a bunch of bats. Especially this card curving with like Deep Cavern Bat is awesome. I think it's actually like could be one of the scariest creatures from the set. It's just about the fact that it's super specific to creature types, and also the fact that you need to be able to gain life. It like restricts the card a little bit, but if you can manage to fit this card in, it's going to be ridiculous. And already like the base stats on this guy, 3 mana, 3/4, and the fact that it can bump itself up as well. I mean, I just love it. Like, one of my favorite cards, and I think the value you can get out of this card, as long as you build your deck right, is unbelievable. So, definitely one of the sleepers for me. Next up on my sleeper list is Mind into Matter. For X green and a blue, you get a sorcery. You can draw X cards, and then you may put a permanent card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped. So at its worst, this is like an X0, and it's just like a 2 mana like ramp you up, kind of like a shared roots effect, even though the land does need to come out of your hand, of course. Now, if you do an X1, you have kind of like an explore effect, where you can draw 1 card and probably put a land onto the battlefield. So it's really nice to help you ramp up, but simultaneously, it's also ramp payoff, because you can end up drawing a ton of cards with this. And if you can then put like, you know, a powerful permanent onto the battlefield, that is also great payoff. So I think the flexibility of this really makes me feel like people are sleeping on it. And I think ramp decks are really happy to see this. Maybe like Sultai Control or something would want this as well. The flexibility, I just value super highly on this, and I think Mind into Matter could surprise some people for sure. And then the next sleeper card is Witherbloom Charm. I think people are really just like not valuing this card good enough. It's the Golgari Charm, and instant speed, you get to choose one. You may sacrifice a permanent if you do draw 2 cards. You gain 5 life, or you destroy target non-land permanent mana value 2 or less. So I think the fact that you could sacrifice a permanent, so this could be like a land, and especially really valuable if it's like an Earth-Bended land, and turn that into drawing 2 cards is sweet. Or imagine like your creature being removed, and in response you're going to be like, all right, I'll sacrifice it and draw 2 cards. I think draw 2 for 2 is just awesome. The gain 5 life, not a huge fan of, even though sometimes it could buy you a turn, and that could be enough to win you the game. But I also just am a big fan of the destroy target non-land permanent mana value 2 or less. The fact that it says non-land permanent is just really exciting, especially against these like really cheap enchantments. I see a lot of play in standard. Could hit like a bunch of these like powerful prowess creatures or like badger moles. So I think it's really underrated. I think people are sleeping on it, and that's why it's on this list. Next up is Emeritus of Ideation. This is a 5 mana 5/5 with flying, ward 2, enters prepared, and then you get Ancestral Recall, which is an instant. Target player draws 3 cards, probably the best card draw spell in the entire game. And also when this creature attacks, you may exile 8 cards from your graveyard. If you do, this creature becomes prepared. Why this card's on my sleeper list is because people very often just like dismiss it. They're like, oh, Riddler's better. And all of a sudden this card is like out of the question. I think Riddler could be the stronger card, but I also think it really depends on how you build your deck. Riddler becomes stronger when the card ends up drawing you 2 cards. That means that you have to have no cards in your hand, right? Or like 1 card in your hand. There are certain decks out there that don't just like dump their entire hand. And in those decks, Emeritus of Ideation can be stronger. So if I'm doing like turn 1 Momo and then like turn 2 like Springleaf Drum or whatever, I can fire this card off as fast as turn 3. It has War 2, so that's going to be pretty tricky to remove. And then you can be working with Ancestral Recalls. You could also be putting yourself in a position where you use this in combination with Blink effects or bounce cards. And then an Ancestral Recall becomes a lot stronger than the Quantum Riddlers like ETB. So I think there are decks that want this over Riddler, but I also think there are decks that want this and Riddler together. And I do think that people are just, yeah, I don't think this card is as easy to say like, oh, nah, Riddler's better, just dismiss it. I don't think that's right. That's why it's on my sleeper list. I think we're going to see a good amount with this card. I think control decks may even want this. Like Riddler in a control deck, when their hand is back to like counterspells and interaction, just draws you a card. This is also a 5/5. Riddler's a 4/6. So it is a little bit stronger. Yeah, I think people are sleeping on it. I think it's not as easy to say like, you know, just shove it. We'll play Riddler instead. I think we're going to see a decent amount of this card, especially with how nice it curves out, even with like Momo and such. And last but not least, on my sleeper list, I have 2 cards because I feel like these guys belong together. Stirring Hopesinger and Informed Inkwright. So both of these cards work with the new Silver Quill mechanic, which is Repartee. So these cards trigger whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature. So Stirring Hopesinger is a 3-mana 1/3 with flying and lifelink and has Repartee. So whenever you get that trigger, you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, including itself. And Informed Inkwright is a 2-mana 2/2 with vigilance, and a Repartee trigger makes you a 1/1 white and black Inkling creature token. So these cards are kind of like the backbone of the Repartee deck within Standard, and I have super high hopes for that archetype. I think when I played with it during early access, it felt like on par with what your aggro deck in Standard needs to do. What I also like about it is that it kind of like plays a bit as a heroic deck. So obviously you can get value by like removing one of your opponent's creatures, but if you have those proactive plays of like, you know, pumping them up, or perhaps even like a protection spell or something like that, and getting all those triggers, that gets out of hand like really quickly. It has a good curve. These 2 cards are sweet. So I think people are like sleeping on them because maybe they don't think the Repartee deck is going to be good in Standard, but I actually see top tier potential for this. Could be wrong, but all I know is that people are at least sleeping on these 2 guys, but we aren't. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. If you want to see these guys in action, I do have a video on my channel already where I play a Silver Quill Repartee deck, and they just popped off like crazy. So I like Inkwright too in combination with something like Enduring Innocence, or think about like a Caretaker's Talent or something. Anything that like benefits from like tokens. Maybe you do this in combination with those like sharpshooters or anything. I think they're really sweet. I think they're going to be surprising a lot of people with how powerful they are, and that's why they belong on this sleeper list. So that's it for my Secrets of Strixhaven set review, my mini set review for YouTube. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you think that I am spot on, or if you think that I'm completely wrong about certain cards, or if I missed out on something. Curious to hear your thoughts. But yeah, happy Strixhaven release day, and hopefully this helps you if you're trying to decide what cards to craft, or you're just curious to see what Strixhaven has to offer. I think it's a very powerful set, and I'm excited to see what we can do with the meta. So thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.